Annabel Gillard, lovely to see you. No relation. We should always make that clear at the beginning of every conversation.
Exactly. Thank you, Sarah.
Happy coincidence. Or at least we think they're relation. Who knows? Who knows?
Yet to be discovered. AI will be able to tell us.
When we do our family tree. We should get AI to do it.
Exactly.
Delighted to see you today. You are, of course, a very valued member of our advisory council on Blueprint, invited because you are an expert in all things AI and ethics. But you have many other wonderful qualities as well as being an advisor for Blueprint. So would you mind
extremely kind of you. It's delightful to join Blueprint. It's an organisation I feel very strongly about, and it's it's the route out of the capitalist malaise that we find ourselves in.
Well, that's what we think. The route out. I like that. We should get badges made. Would you mind giving
follow Sarah? Yes. Sorry.
Exactly. To get on. Could you give us a brief intro to your background? Who you are? How did you get here?
Exactly. Well, I'm recovering from a career in the city where I spent 20-ish years in investment management, working at a range of different asset managers, developing strategic relationships, strategy for business development, and so on. And then I left in 2020 to be part of the very first master's cohort in AI ethics in the UK. Back at the time where it was possible to read the entire literature on the subject, whereas now it's impossible to keep up with what's happened this week. But anyway, it was very helpful to be able to build a kind of mental model while it was manageable. And then back in 2021, when I graduated from that, nobody was really ready to talk about AI ethics, or that was generally the experience I was having. There were a lot of think tanks doing really valuable work. There were places like the OECD developing useful tools, but business was not ready for that conversation, is mostly what I found. I then did a second master's in behavioural science, because actually where AI and behavioural science meet each other, I think is where it has some of the greatest potential for impact, but also some of the probably greatest risk measures around it. And then since then, I've been working in a range of different areas, all I think around trying to build trust in a digitalizing world. So that's about how do we make sure that our organizations are and remain and perhaps even become more human through this technological revolution that's upon us. And we're going through this profound period of change. I believe that the introduction of AI is going to change everything. And so let's seize this opportunity to change it for the better, because there's so many things about our current world and system that don't quite work very well. So rather than just co-opt tech onto an existing system that's breaking at the seams, let's take this moment of revolution to think, how can we create a golden age for humanity? That's my due north.
Fantastic. And whenever I talk to you, your kind of enthusiasm and passion for the topic just comes across so extraordinarily. But what in 2020, when you were recovering from your city experience, what was it about this topic? Because you're not a computer
No, definitely not. No, indeed. And if anyone wants any details about the algorithm, I can't help. But what I am interested in is the human impact of all of these things. And I think there were two or three aspects. The first was seeing what was happening at a political and a societal level in terms of, let's say, Brexit and Trump and the rise of populism generally. If we consider that to be effectively a protest about globalization, then that is nothing compared to the disruption that is coming, both through automation and through climate migration. So if we think, if we can see these things coming, how do we understand what's happening, and how do we get ahead of that and try and position ourselves so that we can surf that wave rather than being knocked over by it? So that was point number one. Point number two is what I was actually seeing in the workplace. So we, along with a lot of other financial services firms, were having all these kind of AI firms coming in and pitching to us, and hey, you can have this sort of all this intelligence about your clients, or all these sort of special insights. What was actually happening was people were resisting it at a really intense level. So the sense was, okay, so we're perhaps seeing our pay or our sort of financial prospects deteriorate while all this money is being paid out on these IT consultants who are coming in and pitching our managers a product that seems to be offering to do our job for us, and then they want us to train it. Hang on a minute. And so what you actually saw was this huge kind of friction. I thought, well, this isn't good for anyone. We're wasting loads of money having really unsuccessful transformations while the individuals are feeling more and more uncomfortable, and the trust is breaking down between employees and employers. So again, I thought, come on, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So those were two of the prompts that I thought I was going to learn some stuff about it. When I got underway with that master's, I felt two things. One was, oh my goodness, this is so much bigger than I realised. And I often think it's a bit like, well, it's a bit like, for anyone who's seen the final Harry Potter movie, the bit where they go in Bellatrix Lestrange's vault, and there's this spell where everything, the minute you touch it, it doubles and doubles and doubles. And that for me is what AI is like. The minute you think
Yeah.
you've got a handle on anything, suddenly there are 7 more perspectives that make you go, oh my god, it blows your mind over and over again, and the implications are huge and vast. But also, I was also delighted to discover there were loads and loads of really smart, clever people working on it. What hadn't happened was the sort of public recognition that this was something to think about. And that's what ChatGPT brought, I think. As much as it wasn't a huge surprise for anyone who was working in AI, we all knew 3.5 was going to be, lots of the capabilities that it had. When it hit the public, the zeitgeist changed, and everybody recognised, oh my goodness, this is coming. And so some of the conversations have been quite hard to get into, like why would anyone care about your data or privacy or all these things? Suddenly they are things that are in conversation. Suddenly everybody, instead of going, oh, you did some strange masters, what is it? It's like, oh, Annabel, you might know something about this. So it's become a dinner table conversation. It's become something people are thinking about for their kids. And what does school look like? What does the
Yeah.
future of school look like? And I think, again, we're at this extraordinary moment in time right now where the design choices are still being made, where what this looks like at a business model level, where what this looks like at a societal level are, it's all up for grabs right now. It won't be forever. This is a window where there is a growing awareness. There is a general sense, I think, there is some recognition of the fact that at the moment we have way too concentrated set of power and over those design choices, that it's happening, to quote the brilliant Rachel Caldicott, it's these design choices being made by 8 billionaires rather than the 8 billion of us who are affected by these choices. And it really will set the business and the social and the political architecture in which the rest of us will be living. So we all need to have a say in that. And I think that there is a growing awareness of that, and a sense that, again, to quote kind of disability activism, nothing about us without us. I think that really applies to the future of tech. And when you look at social media, for example, again, I think now that we're kind of 15 years, coming up to 20 years into that experiment, people can see some of the harms really at a visceral level. And we didn't have to have an engagement model. There were lots of different ways of designing, and in fact there are now some disruptive social media models that are experimenting with different business models. But you can't fix Facebook because it's so intrinsically through the DNA that it's an engagement model, so therefore it's going to be about addiction. It's going to keep pushing you content that's, it's the junk food of your brain. And we didn't have to design like that. And so as we are at this point with AI, we need to be mindful of what's gone on and gone wrong before, and think about what actually makes it better for us, not just what's going to enrich XYZ entrepreneur sitting out in San Francisco. But I also think there's an element to which we can take some comfort from the fact that I think this is partly about the maturing of the process as we become more technologically mature. I think at the very beginning, when you're at the revolutionary stage, it's the faster movers grab the power. But actually, when you're talking about embedding this in systems, then quality starts to, there is always a trade-off between quality and speed. But speed gets you there fast, but quality gets you far. And so if we actually want a sustainable, robust, resilient model to build the next phase of our economic structure on, then that has to be about trustworthy AI, which has to involve things like assurance, which has to involve things like, has to be ethical, it has to be human respecting. And one of the things that I like to say is, our current kind of working environment really treats people like they're machines. One of the revelations to me about doing the behavioral science masters was like, oh my God, all these things we say about, you need to be more this, or you need to, it's actually just how we're built. It's our evolution has caused us to behave like this. We've got a working environment that puts a load of judgments around that. But actually, why don't we create a working environment that is in sync with our organic selves, rather than somehow imagine? And then actually we can imagine, because it's all going to change. So we have this moment, and let's not do what we did with the Industrial Revolution. Let's not say, okay, now we've moved from the machine to the computer, we're going to expect all you humans to behave like computers. Let's do it the other way around and think, what would create the best working environment for the humans? Now, how do we design the tech to support that? That would be so much better. We'd not only get the economic benefits from the technological change, we would also get a human productivity revolution, I believe. So you get double. And I've taken to saying also, I think just employing AI for efficiency is so missing the point. If you do that, you're actually not going to achieve it. You'll get some benefits, but you're not really going to get true efficiency. If you employ AI for empowerment, then you'll get efficiency as a side effect. But that'll be the rounding error versus the productivity growth that you can achieve. So I think we need to come at this from a much more profoundly revolutionary perspective, albeit I appreciate it's a bit challenging.
And a very human-centered perspective from what you're
That's it.
saying.
That is the key. That is the key. And when you look at the other, I mean, the other thing, if you want to make a business case around this, everyone is now going through a period of continual transformation, right? We've gone from I remember when I started, you might have a change management team and they might come along and there might be a change project once every 3 years and it would be bordered and boundaried. And then maybe you'd see that team again in 3 years' time. That's not where we are now. Where we are now
Those are
is
the
every
days, eh?
business, well, quite every business is now in a multiple continual change. Now, what do we know about how business does change? Well, it's not good.
Oh
It's
God,
it's it's
it's
not
not brilliant.
it's not brilliant. McKinsey puts it at a 70% failure rate.
Yeah.
Gartner puts it at an 80% failure rate where there's tech transformation involved. Why are we so bad at it? Guess what? We don't think about the human. That's mostly the reason. It's cultural and governance factors. Well, we can't afford to be that way. If we're now in continual transformation and if it's happening everyone, then number one, we can't really afford to be so wasteful, especially when we know better. It's not like we don't have a playbook for doing this. We do. It's just we keep following the same old failed model. But on top of that, you would hope to see the fact that those people who get this right will be the winners. So there should be, through kind of competitive market forces, we should start to see culture pay. That's what I hope, because it is going to be key to making the transformation effective.
It's so interesting that the sort of opportunity for potential and upside and empowerment and all of these things that you describe, which business tends to be extraordinarily good at once it senses that there's opportunity. It does
Yeah.
less well at managing risks, and particularly where it has blind spots. I suppose there are 2 points around that. One is business tends to be good at sensing opportunity when there's cash involved. So, and I guess my sense, and you know very far better than I do, but like you said, that at the moment, the AI deployment tends to be focused on efficiency
Yeah.
and productivity savings rather than unlocking human capabilities.
Yeah.
Because one has got a clear pound sign against it, and the other one, I guess, is less
It's less obvious, but I think the pound
obvious,
sign's much bigger,
for sure.
honestly. And I think the pound sign that's there against the efficiency is probably inflated, because if you're
Yeah,
not taking people with you on that journey, you're probably not going to get as many benefits as you think you are. It's probably going to cost you more. It's probably going to take longer. It'll be less effective.
yeah,
So I think the investment community here has a role to play, frankly,
yeah.
in what are you rewarding? And to be fair, there has been a little bit of shakeout. This, when you look at what's happening in markets so far this year, there has been a sense of, hang on a minute, okay, we were all really excited about investing loads in AI, but what are the actual benefits? Who can actually demonstrate successful business case? And I think it is partly also the fact that we seem to be hooked on short-termism within investment markets. Whereas actually, if you take a 3 to 5 year view on what's going to set this company up for, long-term sustainable growth, it's
Yes.
a different set of questions, isn't it?
I mean, obviously, we can't put the genie back in the bag, but it would have been quite useful if AI was developed maybe in 5 or 10 years' time, when hopefully the sort of
Right.
purpose-led business movement had gained a bit more mainstream
Or maybe this
traction.
will help unlock it. I mean, one of the things, you've kindly come to some of our conversations on AI before, and the last one we
Which are
did,
brilliant, by the way.
which were, thank you very much. The last one we did was on AI and education. And what came through really clearly from the panel, well, firstly, that point about how many other questions it raised. So we now only ask one question at these events, because it turns out it's hard to even do that justice
That's
in an hour and
enough.
a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the panel's response to that first one question, they between them raised another 31
Oh my
questions,
goodness.
right? But what also came out really clearly is actually a recognition that lots of things about our existing education model don't work, and that the evidence about how to do it better isn't we're not waiting for it. It's there. It's been there for decades, but
Yeah,
it's too profound a change for
yeah.
any politician to sign off on. So when you think, well, actually, we know this doesn't work very well, and we even have a blueprint for how to do it better, but what's been lacking is the motivation and ability, or the political will, to be able to do something so radical transformative.
Mm.
That again, that's where, is there an opportunity here? Absolutely, because this is the moment where you can say, actually, we need to rethink it all. Education as it was can't work in the age of AI. It's not knowledge we should be teaching kids. It's skills. That there's no, knowledge is infinitely available. What you need is the ability to sift through it and figure out what's the relevant knowledge. What you need is the skill to be able to know, is this a hallucination or is this actually proper? What you need is the ability to create and innovate, and what you need is how to kind of social and emotional intelligence. There's a whole different set of learnings. And again, when you think about the potential for tailored tutoring to every kid on the planet, which is the sort of, and infinitely available, again, if we could get the benefits of that while also actually investing in their human capabilities, which again is the bit that often gets missed at school, actually, again, you could golden age for humanity. It's possible if we
Yeah.
can be really brave and actually lean into this. Big change is coming anyway. So, okay, so how do we make the change the best for the humans?
And like you say, it requires that kind of intentionality and thinking about what does a better future look like and how do we use this moment to help craft it, that perhaps is
Yeah.
not a common thing inside business and organizations generally. They
No.
tend to be much more focused on what's the crocodile nearest the boat and how do I think about the next week or month or quarter, rather than what's this, wonderful future that we are part of creating and how do we make sure that we're making decisions that are in service of that better future. And of course, that's what Blueprint's all about, right? We're a blueprint for a better business, trying to help organizations think more broadly about what does value look like, what is the impact on people and society and the environment. So these questions of purpose or ethics or morality are hopefully integral to how we're thinking about AI. Are you seeing businesses bring in that kind of thinking into the conversation, or are these conversations still largely led by the IT department in a sort of look at what we can do and look at what we can make more efficient?
Exactly. I mean, I've literally just come off a call with a large company where they are, I would say they're ahead of the game because they are having that. But even so, we're talking to the ethics and the compliance folks, and they're saying, we're really trying to engage the board on this. So yes, I think it's still too siloed, but I think we're moving. So about a year ago, when we again, Rachel Caldicott, I'm going to name check a couple more times because she just speaks so brilliantly on this. Her also of FOMO is not a strategy. And, start with what's the business problem you're trying to solve before you think about is AI the solution? So question zero, we sometimes call it. I think that's now become pretty much mainstream. That was a revolutionary concept a year ago that you're hearing now is generally recognized. I think AI related governance structures are starting to appear again. When I was talking to businesses a year ago, why do we need something specific for AI? That's not the case anymore. There is now, but I still don't think we're joining the dots between. I still think it is, well, your chief technology officer will have done that, and then maybe the risk guys are looking at that. Okay, but the technology officer probably haven't been looking through, for example, data protocols to think, are there unintentional ethical or values perspectives that are slipping into the way that we're creating and maintaining our data, which, just because you wouldn't think to do that as a technology officer, that's not your training, that's not your background. You're like, does the data work? Not are there unintentional human implications of this data? Now, it's interestingly, most of the tech postgrad and even undergrad are starting to incorporate an ethical module, which is kind of interesting. And things like the British Computer Science Society, or whatever they are, BCS, I forget exactly what it stands for. And then in the US, the IEEE, which are the kind of professional bodies for these people. They are introducing AI ethics qualifications and training. So that is coming for the sort of bottom up bit. But there's definitely an absence of joining the dots. I think you need it at a much more of a board level. And again, the leading AI governance guidance suggests this, that it should be a subcommittee of the board that is specifically looking at AI governance. And for me, that doesn't just involve having someone from tech. You absolutely need someone who's all over the people side of it. Yes, you need the compliance people, you need the legal people. You probably also need the chief exec in there, to be honest, because this is about it's so profound. and you don't really realize all of the implications until you've got all those perspectives in the room. It's quite easy for you to think this is complicated enough with the hat that I'm wearing now, whether that be thinking about how regulation is changing because I'm sitting as a general counsel, or whether that's the chief technology officer thinking, crikey, how much have I paid for this outsourced solution, and is it going to deliver, and all that stuff, let alone hang on a minute, but what underneath all of this are the human impacts? What are the, I think I mentioned to you before that I spoke to a group of business leaders and said, how many people have got a transformation underway? Every hand goes up. How many people in the project plan have just got a line that's even just monitoring the cultural impact of that? Oh yeah, no hand goes up. That feels to me quite, that's sort of step one, or one of the important steps.
Gosh. And as you say, most transformations fail because of the complete lack of focus on the people and the culture, and AI has got such profound impacts on people, and the potential and risk, making this human-centric.
Again, it reflects the fact we've become more and more siloed. I think this is true whether you look at our academic world or our school world or our business world. But actually, this is interdisciplinary, and there's such a value to bringing different perspectives together. I think this is the answer to we actually need to build in more resilience to our system. We need a bit more redundancy. We need something that's a bit more robust. And to your point earlier about the pounds and pence, it's a little frustrating that, there's so much focus on that. But actually, if you get culture right, you don't have to spend as much money recruiting new people or paying people through the nose because they can't bear what they're doing, or whatever it might be, having to overcompensate because, actually, if you get this stuff right, it is more cost effective. People can be doing a great job and feeling valued and being paid a fair wage, and the company also gets to retain and attract the best talent, and and you get a good transformation. So I think there's a really strong business case, but it does require you to be able to look through short-term noise to be able to kind of think about the 3 to 5 year.
Absolutely, and imagine that better future. So one final question, Annabel, because I know your time is limited, but uncertainty has been a big theme of the community of practitioners that we run, and obviously AI is one of the things driving uncertainty.
Oh wow!
So, in a nutshell, how do you navigate it? What excites you, and what are you worried about?
Right. Thank you. I love that question because honestly, I kept feeling, well, I've been on my own journey with this because I started back in 2020, and I thought, oh heavens, this is so much bigger and so much scarier than I first realized. And then I thought, how on earth am I going to stay on top of this, and how do I stay relevant? And then actually, in a way, it's sort of oddly freeing when you realize you can't possibly. When you realize the sheer scale of it, it's actually quite liberating. You think, oh, I'm never going to be able to stay on top of it. So actually, the important point is maintaining a community of people who know something about it. It's exactly why we launched Conversations on AI. How do we kind of create spaces where more and more of us can share our ideas and share our understanding, because you can't hold it all in your head. And actually, once you realize that nobody's an expert, we can all have relevant expertise, but no one person, it actually releases you. But it also creates, I think, or what's helpful for me is trying to step into this more kind of humble and curious mindset that doesn't say I have to know everything. As it says instead, I know some things enough to help me ask some better questions, hopefully. And if you approach everything, I gave a talk recently to some people who are at the mid-level of their career about what are the things you need to navigate this uncertainty. And I would say 3 things. So curiosity is one of them. If you can embrace a curious mindset instead of feeling like you need to know all the answers, I think it's really helpful with uncertainty. If you can think, oh, I don't know, isn't that interesting? What can we find out more? Instead of, oh my God, I don't know. And I should. It's a different perspective. Second thing I think is community, because I think it, and the third thing I'd say is courage.
Beautiful. I love
those
it
are my
when
3
it alliterates
C's
as well. That makes me very happy.
Well, you inspired me on that, all your C's.
So many good words begin with C. It's
Exactly.
It's a fun game. Curiosity, community, and courage. Well, that is a fantastic moment to close this short podcast, video, webinar, whatever you want to call it, of this fascinating topic. I'm sure we'll come back again because you are.
It's here to stay.
It seems to be a thing. It seems to be catching on. Probably ought to lean in. So thank you for being our pioneer on it, Annabel, and doing all those masters at a time when everyone thought you were probably mad. And look forward to chatting again about this fascinating topic. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you.